the team is very, very, very conservative. What were some times yesterday, if any, that you thought they should have done things a little differently and maybe been a little more aggressive?
Well, Fred, first of all, I would just say everything's fair game this morning, right? The team plays like that. I think fans deserve better than that. And all the criticism is warranted. I think there are some games where you lose because the other team outperforms you. And then there's others where you just self-destruct. So obviously that you didn't even give yourself a chance. So be more aggressive, be less aggressive. Like, honestly, this goes back to fundamentals to me, Fred. Like, just line up and don't false start. Line up correctly behind the ball. Don't jump into the neutral zone on defense. These are things that are very elementary, and they couldn't execute those, and so they had no business winning the game. It's as Devon Godchow said in the locker room after the game, embarrassing.
Have you ever seen, and you've been following the Patriots a long, long time, you've seen bad teams. Have you ever seen an offensive lineman commit 5 penalties in one half? And have you ever seen a wide receiver commit 2 offensive pass interference penalties in the same game?
So, John, I should have probably looked back on that. I can't recall it. I think the thing that stood out about these penalties are sometimes you get, 2 or 3 holding penalties because the referees are calling it tight, and you might say, is that really a hold? 3 false starts? I actually think we've seen it, in some other games around the league where, the officials have a point of emphasis, right? And they're trying to nip it in the bud, but this was not that. I mean, this was just a lack of focus, attention to detail. Very, very rare and inexcusable.
Okay, how much of that do you think is coaching and how much of that is personnel related?
Yeah. I listened to I've never played, obviously, Fred. So when Christian Fourier was talking last night on the Fifth Quarter show on Channel 4 that I'm part of, and he's a player. And so like his perspective matters to me because he's done it. I haven't. He says that's on the player. And so that was interesting for me to hear from a former player. I guess I look at it and say it's probably a little bit of both, right? So the player's once the ball is, spotted and you got to play the play, it's up to the player to do it. But what is the culture within the team? What is the repercussion that players know could happen to them if they make multiple mistakes? And if there's no fear of repercussions for making mistakes, maybe there's a part of that on the coaching. And that's something that I think you got to look at when you have 6 pre-snap penalties in the first half, 13 penalties overall. To just say that that coaching isn't part of that it would be hard for me to reconcile. And I think Gerard Mayo said it after the game. It starts with him.
Yeah, certainly. But I just real quickly, because this is going to be something. Look, going into the season, we knew the team wasn't going to be very good. Going into the season, we wanted Drake May to develop. That's been happening. So, but I understand as this team loses, how they lose matters. Is that so? That's going to be the narrative, I guess, for the rest of the season, because all these things that happen, the sacks, the penalties, the inability to stop people on defense, this is all going to be a debate on how much of this is personnel and how much of this is coaching. How are the coordinators? Because Mayo's not going anywhere. Do you think the coordinators are on notice now? Where do you stand? What are you hearing? What's going on with that?
So on the personnel thing, Fred, I'm glad you mentioned it because right before I came on, I wrote down some notes and I said, okay, if we go through their personnel and ask the question, who would be starting on another team? Like, I think that's a good exercise.
It's a great exercise.
Okay. How many people would that be?
Well, offensively, I'm going to do my quick punch list here, and I'm curious if you guys agree. Quarterback, yes, Drake May. Running back, Ramondre Stevenson, yes. Tight end, Hunter Henry, yes. Offensive line, of the 5 offensive linemen, Micah Wenu,
Yeah.
the right guard.
Sure.
And the penalties yesterday in the offensive linemen were on the low with, 4 of them and Jacobs with 2 of them. I mean, they fall in the other category. And receiver, if you go top 3 receivers, maybe 1 if you want to put maybe Pop Douglas as your slot.
Nope.
Okay. All right. So between, if we have 8 players between the 5 offensive linemen and the top 3 receivers, we got 1. We just picked 1 between the 4 of us that would start for another team.
And where do you stand on Van Pelt? Obviously, teams don't want to keep switching coordinators with a young quarterback. If his job mainly is to develop Drake May, look, we all know Van Pelt's not some innovative offensive guru. Do you think it's important, because of the positive development of Drake May, to keep Van Pelt and have that consistency?
I probably fall in that category, Fred. I do. And I think it's hard. I was trying to make an analogy. If I'm a house builder, like you asked me to go build a house, but you don't give me what I need to build it. Like, it's hard. So that's probably where, yes, I lean in, not to sit on the fence.
Okay,
yes.
So the defense, though, was supposed to be good. I understand there are people missing and injuries and stuff like that, and I understand Belichick's the best defensive coach of all time. Do you think Covington's job is in jeopardy based on the way the defense is played?
That one, like let's go through the personnel on that, like we did on offense. Can we do that?
Absolutely.
Because I think that helps. So we'll start from the back end forward. So I think safety, of the 2 safeties, I'd say 1, Kyle Duggar, right? And we know Peppers isn't there. Would be 2 probably if Peppers was there, but he's not there. Corner, of the top 3, I could make a case of 2.
Yes.
Gonzalez, Marcus Jones, John Jones. Like, I think you can win with those 3. So 2 to 3. Linebacker gets a little dicey. Maybe 1 between Anthony Jennings and Jelani Tavai.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess no one would, look, if they were free agents, they wouldn't break the bank, but whatever. Yeah, there's a lack of talent at linebacker. Go ahead.
And then defensive line, I'd say between, Godchow, Barmore, Keon White, because I'm including him there, probably 3.
Right.
So,
but you don't have a very good pass rusher, let alone elite. You don't have a guy who's a disruptor.
White started that way, but has faded recently. His teams have been paying attention to him.
He's not that guy. I mean, White was probably a good pick where he was taken, but White's not like a disruptor. He's not a high end edge rusher. No.
Yeah, and so Fred, I think, to wrap it up, I think personnel-wise, I see more on the defense than I do on the offense. And so that, to answer your question, I would have expected a little more from the defense based on that. Obviously, some guys are in and out. You're missing Juwan Bentley, but I don't think that's an excuse. The defense I want to dig into a little more because that's concerning to me. That was non-competitive at times yesterday. Shouldn't have been. It's
a tough exercise, Mike, when you're talking about the personnel versus the coaching, whether it's offense or defense, because when you talk about a well-coached team, you're talking about a team that doesn't make a lot of unforced errors. They don't have the pre-snap penalties, but you could easily turn around and say, well, good players don't make those types of mistakes. So it's just easier to coach good players. So maybe the coaching isn't that much different on other teams. They just have players that are easier to coach and don't make those mistakes inherently. You could go back and forth on this, but I think where I end up landing on it is you certainly need to improve aspects of the personnel, starting with the offensive line. And yeah, you could probably deal with a couple of upgrades in a couple of key coaching positions. I don't think we're going to get them in the next year or 2, but down the road, that's probably what it's going to take. It's going to take a bit of both.
And I sort of look at it this way, guys. I'm curious what you think. There are certain points in the season that are sort of flashpoints, and I thought after the London game against the Jaguars, that was one of them, where Gerard Mayo talked about the team playing soft, and I thought the team responded fairly well from that. the last 4 games prior to this one, they were competitive. I thought they were playing a brand of football that you could look at and say, oh, they're building a little something here. And then came yesterday, which I thought was a major step back. And so now, to me, you got 5 games left. My question is, can they get it back going to what we saw the prior 4 games, which certainly wasn't perfect, but it was, I thought, a representative brand of football that makes you think better days could be ahead? Or is this a sign of deeper trouble ahead? And if they tail off sharply here, the final 5 games of the season, like this discussion we're having is going to keep going, and it's going to be pretty intense.
Okay, final question. Elliott Wolf drafted Drake May. That I feel that buys him a lot of time, and I think that you would agree. Do you agree with that? Just yes or no?
I do.
Okay, so Polk looks like he's not going to be an upper half NFL receiver, but who knows? Do you feel that it's not? Do you think it's not too early to say Wolf screwed up the rest of the draft, or do you need more time for that? And do you look at this last year's draft as a success, regardless of what else happens, because they got May?
So I do. I know some people think it's a no-brainer to take May. I think that's revisionist history
that's
myself.
Completely revisionist history. Go
yeah,
ahead.
and I understand. I respect that people view it differently. So that, yes, Fred, I think this is the hardest thing right now. You look at the draft, and other than Drake May, it's hard to really defend it. But there are so many examples around the league of players come on year 2, year 3. I'm thinking of Julian Edelman. Like, if we judged him, and I know you can cherry pick different things, like he didn't come on till his 4th or 5th year. So stuff like that, those are hard conversations for me to judge after 12 games, but that's what we do. We got to, and right now the facts are the facts. They're not getting much out of their draft class other than Drake.
Yeah, I just look. Polk looks like he was a little bit of a bust, but I mean, you got linemen that you took later in the draft, and I'm not ready to say that they're not. They couldn't develop into at least capable backups, and then everything else after that's kind of a crapshoot anyway. All right, listen, I think people are being too hard on Wolf. I'd be overjoyed if I was a Patriots fan knowing that he drafted Drake May. All right, listen, Mike Reiss, you're so wonderful. We always keep you late. Thank you for the time.
If you like that clip, and how could you not? Check out more videos from Toucher and Hardy here. Point slightly up and to the left. For more Patriots analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. Point slightly down and to the left. And for the latest from the Sports Hub, download at 985thesportshub.com.